Welcome into the Commanders Report live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and over the next hour or so, we got a bunch of great Commanders content to get to here on the show. First up, we're going to be talking about some bad news that the Washington Commanders got this week in terms of their trade prospects. It seems like one of their top trade targets might be potentially off the market here, so we'll break down who that potential trade target is. Then, speaking of trade targets, we'll get into my top Commanders trade targets as we approach the NFL trade deadline coming up here next Tuesday. Then also we have the live Q&A. So if you guys want to get your question on today's Commanders Report mailbag, all you guys got to do is use hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat, or you guys can super chat to get on the show. So if you don't know how to super chat, you guys just go down there close to where you put in your comments. You select the money symbol. It looks like a dollar bill. You select the amount of money that you want to send in, and then you send it our way. Any donation, $1, $2, $5, $10, doesn't really matter. If you guys want to get on the show and want to guarantee your spot on the mailbag today, you guys can put in those super chats. And if you guys want to go to the discretion of producer Joey here, you guys can put your question behind hashtag Commanders. The way that works is you put your question in the comments section. You go like hashtag Commanders. Will Adam Peters make a trade before the trade deadline? And then Joey will see that, and he'll put it on the show today. So we have a good crew of Commanders fans already here, over 100 people already in the chat. We've got Waves, we've got Jasmine Gray, we got Andrew Crowell, we've got Jackist Properties, LLC, we've got Robert Keys, we got George Fields, and then we got Henry Schneider. Make sure you guys get down there in the comments section and let us know where you're watching the show from here. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And don't forget to get your questions down there in the comments section. If you guys spend $50 on today's edition of the Commanders Report, you get to join Hog Mafia for life. It is our Super Chat Club here at the Commanders Report. You get an awesome Super Chat sticker next to your Super Chats for life, and you get a shout-out on every single Commanders Report live social. Shout-out to IQ Barbecue, Marco Gorman, Omar's Burner, Lord Buddy Bear, Luke O'Gorman, TJ, Commando Mike, James Howard, Russell Hance, and Jerry Gettings. And if you guys want to send in a donation via Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal, we actually get to keep more of the proceeds if you send in your donation dollars via these channels. YouTube takes 30% of every single dollar you donate via Super Chat. So we're not going to say no to Super Chats if that's your mode of donation. That's perfectly fine with us. But if you want us to keep more of your donation dollars, you guys can send in the money to @Jack-Sperry on Venmo, #CaptainJack19 on Cash App, or @CaptainJackRabbit on PayPal. And again, guys, I already covered the Hog Mafia perks. Again, it's $50 on a single stream to join. You get a donation sticker next to your Super Chats for life. It's kind of like having a blue check mark only for this community. Then also you get a shout out on every single live show. So make sure you guys spam those me's in the comment section right now as we bring in our producer, Joey Peterson. Right now, Joey, we're at 139 people watching, only 18 likes. We need to get to at least let's go 40 likes. We need to get to 40 likes before we get into our first segment today. Joey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, I'll be doing a lot better when I see you get to 40 likes. That's just what, 1/3? 1/3. That's all we need. Let's get to 40, and when you like, spam me. Cassie's liked, Dill Pickles liked, Jasmine's liked, Eugene, Richard Barker, all the real ones are in here liking the stream.
Absolutely. We've got Richard Folks here. We got Ben Holvey. Kenny Strauzer's here. We got Demarius Young. It's Torched. We've got Cassie's in here, my girlfriend. Everyone give Cassie a shout out if you'd be so kind. We got Todd J in here. We got Donald Shelton. We've got Eugene in here. What's up, Eugene? Good to see you. We got Robert Parrish in here. Got Jeffrey Winters. We've got Donnell Shelton. We've got Waves, Jasmine Gray. Got a good crew of people here, man. We got Jabari Corbett. We got Eugene. We've got Jason. Right now we're at 34 likes, so we need 6 more likes, guys, before we get into our first segment today. Got some very bad news that we have to discuss today when it comes to the Washington Commanders, and one of my favorite trade targets might not be available, so that's bad news for the Commanders, Joey.
Yeah, especially, and I don't want to give away too much, but especially with the trade they made yesterday, you'd think maybe it was they were going to sell a lot. I guess not.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. We just got to 50 likes. So not only did we get to 40, we got to 50. So I won't make you guys wait any longer. Let's get to our first segment today. Some bad news, if you're a Washington Commanders fan, is coming at you right now. The Washington Commanders just received some bad news as we approach Tuesday's NFL trade deadline next week. Coming up here, I'm going to be letting you guys know what that bad news is, and make sure you guys stick around to the end of today's video where we're going to be breaking down a trade idea that would send star wide receiver T. Higgins to the Washington Commanders. So lots to talk about today on the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. And before we get into the content today, whether it's good, bad, or ugly news for the Commanders, we're going to be here giving you guys free, informative content every single day. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. We're currently the fastest growing Commanders news channel here on YouTube, and that's all because of your guys' support. We're now over 20,000 subscribers. We're definitely growing like crazy, so help us grow even more here by clicking that subscribe button today. So the bad news here, and you guys know I'm a big Jaycee Horn fan. I've been saying I've made multiple videos about why the Commanders should go out and try to make a trade for the young corner out of Carolina. And Jordan Schultz reported earlier this week that the Panthers are likely not going to trade Horn before the NFL trade deadline, which in my opinion, it's pretty bad news, at least for me, somebody that wants Horn to be a Washington Commander. This was the report from Schultz saying, source, despite teams calling about them, the Panthers have no plans of trading cornerback Jaycee Horn or running back Chuba Hubbard. And he is quoted as saying they're not having a fire sale is what his source said. So, maybe Carolina's just playing hardball here. Maybe they do want to trade Jaycee Horn, but they don't want to do it for anything less than a day 2 draft pick, and no one is offering that for him at this point. So I think that maybe for the right price, Carolina might unload Jaycee Horn, but also at the same time, if I'm Carolina, I don't want to trade him either. He is a very, very talented, very kind of unique physical player in terms of his physical gifts. Super long arms, super strong as a corner, and he also pairs that with really good athleticism, short area quickness, man. This guy's got a very high-end skill set, and he's put on some really high-end tape in his time in the National Football League. Now, he's dealt with some injuries. I don't think the Carolina Panthers in their current scheme really fits his skill set. It's a lot of off coverage. I think Horn is much more suited for a press man-heavy role, and by the way, that's what he'd be doing here in Washington. That's why I want Dan Quinn to go save him from that nightmare in Carolina. But if I'm the Panthers right now, I don't really want to get rid of him either, so I kind of believe this report from Jordan Schultz that he's probably going to stay put in Carolina. However, there are other options out there for the Washington Commanders. I've been talking about on this show for months how this team needs to add another cornerback, and now as the trade deadline looms, there are still some big names out there that Adam Peters could go out and try to trade for. Guys like Greg Newsome from the Cleveland Browns, very high draft pick, very sought after guy that's played pretty darn well in both zone and man systems in his time playing football. Also, Jonathan Jones from the New England Patriots. They run a lot of man coverage there in New England, especially back in the Bill Belichick days, and I think that Jones could be a good fit here in Washington. Then Marshawn Lattimore's been dealing with some hamstring issues, but he's very good, very aggressive corner. He's been in the league for a long time. If you're looking for a guy to be your true number one right out of the box, you'd hope that Marshawn Lattimore's healthy if you trade for him. But at the end of the day, he is a true number one corner, and if Washington really wants to try to make a run at a Super Bowl this year, I think Marshawn Lattimore could definitely take this defense from okay, because the secondary, let's face it, it's probably a little below average, to a secondary that's pretty darn good, and this defense going to the next level. So the team needs here for the Washington Commanders that I could see them potentially address before the NFL trade deadline this year. Cornerback is certainly number one on my list. I don't want any of these other positions to take away from the cornerback position, all right? That is the first and foremost thing. If the Commanders are going to make a trade, I want to make sure it's going to be for a cornerback. And then if you want to go out and get another edge rusher, an offensive tackle, or a wide receiver to kind of supplement kind of the haul that they get before the trade deadline passes, I think more power to Adam Peters here, especially if he thinks Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn can turn this year's Commanders team into a Super Bowl contender. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Commanders make a trade before the deadline, or are they going to stand pat? Give me a yes if you think that they make a trade, or type no if you don't think they're going to make a trade. Coming up here in just a second, there's going to be a YouTube ad break that comes up right now. While that YouTube ad break comes up here, give me a yes or a no for today's pinned comment. So coming up next here on the Commanders Report, the T. Higgins trade idea that I teased at the beginning of today's video. But before we get into that trade idea for T. Higgins, let's go ahead and have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And folks, we all know that experiencing a sporting event, especially a football game live, is unlike anything you can get from watching the game on your couch. So if you guys want to go see more football games live this year, Game Time Picks is a brand new feature on the free Game Time app, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All you guys got to do is download the free Game Time app. You go to an event you guys want to go see, you select the Game Time Picks button at the top of the screen, and it automatically filters through every single ticket in their database to find you the best tickets at the best prices with the best deals for you and your family. And guys, what I love about using the Game Time app is you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event. Also, you get all-in pricing right up front, so you don't get slapped with a crazy fee at checkout. I hate when these ticketing apps do that. You don't have to deal with that with Game Time. Then also flash deals, so if you like to procrastinate, kind of wait till the last minute to get your tickets, Game Time actually drives down their already guaranteed low prices even further the longer you wait to Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So let's get into this T. Higgins trade rumor here from CBS Sports' Tyler Sullivan, who connected the Bengals wide receiver to the Washington Commanders here. This is what Sullivan had to say in his most recent article. The Commanders secondary certainly could use a boost via a trade to help make the pass defense a more formidable unit. That said, they could also use a pass catcher to further build around rookie sensation Jayden Daniels. The Bengals didn't pay Higgins this offseason, and he is set to be a free agent. If they are out of the playoff race and don't plan on re-signing Higgins, it makes sense to get a blue-chip asset in return for him while they still can. Now, personally, I don't necessarily think Washington needs to add another wide receiver. I think Noah Brown has done some good things this year. Luke McCaffrey has shown some good things. Same thing with De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus at times, but there's no doubt about it, man. Adding a guy like T. Higgins could certainly help this unit, but, if they don't land a guy like T. Higgins, I still think this offense is going to be just fine. You take a look at these numbers here, and you can see that this is perfectly fine right here. The only one that maybe concerns you a little bit in terms of the ranking is the 24th red zone offense right now, but they've had a couple games where they've had multiple red zone trips and they don't get the job done. So maybe that concerns you a little bit, but every other stat category here is in the top 5, and that is without T. Higgins, okay? So Jayden Daniels is more than effective enough without Higgins in the lineup. And even if you look at the advanced stats here, EPA per play, they're in the top 3, top 4 in success rate, and then also EPA per pass attempt, they're in the top 10 as well. So it's not like the passing game is really struggling and the run game is dominant. It's like the passing game is doing just fine for the Washington Commanders this year, even without Higgins. But that doesn't mean that, this offense can't go to an even higher level with Higgins in the lineup. I would say, with a guy with Higgins' ability to get open at his size, with his ability to contort his body and make great catches down the field, I would say, with Jayden Daniels' deep ball and with Terry McLaurin on the other side of the field, you can make an argument the Commanders go from a top 5 offense to potentially the best offense in football when you get a guy like T. Higgins. However, I will say I'm not going to overpay for him, okay? Because you are going to have to pay him a brand new contract once you trade for him. And, if you're going to do that, I'm not going to give up a first round or a second round pick to acquire him, especially because you don't really need him right now. So the highest I'm willing to offer for T. Higgins is a third round pick for next season. The Commanders have 2 of those suckers for next year. So, if the Bengals want to take one of them and the Commanders get T. Higgins and they lock him up to a long-term deal, that's something that I'd be willing to do, but that is the most I'd be willing to pay. And honestly, I think there's other teams in the National Football League that are more desperate, might pay a higher price tag for T. Higgins. So if you want my prediction, I do not think Higgins comes to the nation's capital. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. If the Bengals offered this potential package to you, would you take this offer? Type A if you'd accept, or type D if you're going to decline. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. Thank you for watching today's edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we've got more Commanders content coming your way, getting you guys ready for this Week 9 matchup versus the New York Giants, trying to get that season sweep. So if you want the informative, in-depth, free content that we have here on the channel all throughout this week, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. All right, so coming up next, my list of the top Commanders trade targets for this football team here. And then, of course, we still have the live Q&A coming up later in today's show. So if you got a question, don't be shy. Get down there in the comments section and give me a hashtag Commanders along with your question, or you guys can super chat to guarantee your question gets on the show. So, Joey, anything that stood out to you there in that first segment that you want to talk about?
Dude, I don't think they're going to go get T. Higgins, and I don't think it's necessarily something like they have to do. But gosh, that would be such a big swing and be such a big addition to this offense.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to be trading a day 2 draft pick, I'd rather go out and get a nice young corner. Yes. That's going to be your number 1 corner. Go out and get a Jaycee Horn if he's available. Go out and get maybe a Greg Newsome, who's still only 24 years old as well. I just think that the biggest uptick that you can get is if you add a legit starting corner. We're going to be talking about some of the top corners in this next segment here. But we've been talking about it on the show for literally months at this point. I think that the offensive line has exceeded their expectations this season. I really thought on paper this offensive line wasn't going to be very good. And, it's not the best offensive line in the world. They certainly they're certainly not like an elite unit, but they're certainly good enough to be a top 5 offense in football. I think that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. have done such a good job, maximizing what this defense is capable of. But if you get a number 1 corner to be your true island press man guy on the outside, taking away number 1s, that can turn this defense into a serviceable unit, into at least an above-average defense. And if you add an above-average defense to this elite offense, I mean, the sky is the limit for what this Washington Commanders team can do this year, even with a rookie quarterback and a first-year head coach.
How much does the Marshon Lattimore injury that he suffered on Sunday against the Chargers, how much does that concern you?
A little bit for this season in particular. But the thing, we're going to talk about Marshon here in just a second, but he still has 3 years left on his deal, including this one. So if you make that trade for Marshon Lattimore, it's not just for this season. It's not just a rental. You are getting him to be your number 1 corner for the next 3 seasons. All right, so that is something that the Commanders are trying to win in the long haul here. If you think that Marshon Lattimore could be your guy for the foreseeable future, I mean, that's certainly something that you can pull the trigger on. I will say the hamstring injury concerns me a little bit with him. We'll see if he's actually healthy. But he's had that hamstring flare up multiple times this year. So, I mean, if the Commanders even trade a 4th or a 5th round pick, that's a little bit of a risk. But I think Marshon's a really good player. We're going to talk about him here in just a second. So don't forget, get your questions on the show, guys. I want to give some shout outs here. We got Christopher Trice in here. We got Gregory Pett in here. We got JG. We got Walter Baker. Jasmine Gray is in here. Greg Milton. I see a bunch of people getting their questions in. That's awesome. We got Jeremy Dobbins. We got Eugene. School Funny is here. Dill Pickle. Bob K. Robert Lawrence. Greg Milton. We got a good crew of people here, man. We got over almost 300 people watching live around the world right now, Joey.
Dang.
Good audience here on a Wednesday. And by the way, we're 4 likes away, all right? So if we can get to 100 likes right now, guys, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really does help out the show. It tells the YouTube algorithm to push this show out to more Commanders fans. So if you want to help us get to triple-digit likes here, go ahead and click that thumbs up icon. And we just got there, so thank you guys so much for all of your support. So let's get into it right now, man. My top trade targets here for the Washington Commanders as the trade deadline looms. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today I'm going to be breaking down 6 players that I think the Washington Commanders should be heavily targeting here before the passing of the NFL trade deadline on November 5th. That is next week, Tuesday. And I just want to talk about some of the players that I think could really elevate this Commanders team. And by the way, every single player we talk about is going to be a defensive player. So before we get into it today, man, the trade deadline is on Tuesday next week on November 5th. I do expect the Commanders to be giving some calls. I'm not going to guarantee that they end up making a deal. I think there's other teams that, are probably going to be more aggressive than the Commanders. I think Washington feels like they're in a pretty good spot, but that doesn't mean they won't make a deal. And if they do make a deal, guys, we're going to have you guys covered with breaking news coverage right here on the Commanders Report. So make sure you guys are subscribed, because when that trade happens, if a trade happens, we're going to have you guys covered with a video right here on the Commanders Report. So first up here, let's talk about the corners, because 4 out of the 6 players I'm going to talk about today are cornerbacks, all right? And, you take a look at the cornerback room for the Washington Commanders right now, and it's just, it's a lot of okay, especially on the outside. Benjamin St-Juste and Mike Sainristil have been pretty good, I would say, on the outside this year, and then Noah Igbinogheni's been trying his best, but he's been pretty unremarkable in the slot this year. I think Mike Sainristil is more suited to play in the slot, so I would love to get almost like a true number one cornerback. Allow Benjamin St-Juste to cover number 2 receivers instead of number 1 guys, and allow Mike Sainristil to play in the slot where he can really be a true impact player for this Commanders defense moving forward. So the first player that I'm going to talk about here is Jaycee Horn. Now, we put out a video just yesterday, actually, that the Panthers are unlikely to trade Jaycee Horn, and that is certainly possible because he is still only 24 years old. All right, he does have a very unique physical skill set where he pairs really good speed with the long arms and a really strong build, and he's super physical in press coverage. But the thing about the Panthers is that they never play press coverage. They always play off. That doesn't really fit Jaycee Horn's play style, and because of that, his production has kind of dipped ever since Ejiro Evero was brought over here to be the defensive coordinator for the Panthers. But according to Jordan Schultz, the Carolina Panthers are not looking to trade him. That doesn't change my desire to want to go out and see if he can be traded for. But as you guys can see here, Jordan Schultz says the Panthers kind of like him and they don't want to get rid of him. So at this point, I do think Jaycee Horn would probably be at the top of my list because I think he could be a potential Trayvon Diggs type player in this Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. type defense. So if he's gettable, I would say Adam Peters absolutely needs to make a strong push for him. But at this point, if you believe this report, the Panthers aren't probably going to let him go. So number 2 on my list is Marshon Lattimore. And the reason why Lattimore is number 2 here is because he can be a great veteran presence in this Commanders defense. Plus, he has 3 years left on his current contract. The reason why the Saints might be unloading him is because, he's got a little bit of a cap hit. It's under $20 million, so it's not astronomical, but they're going to have some cap issues in years to come. And I think that, with their season being over, they might want to unload some of their future cap that comes with Lattimore's contract. He is 28 years old, so he's getting up there in age, but he's still in his prime. And honestly, he's going to be in his prime pretty much for the rest of his current contract. And he is a physical press man type of corner. That can be this team's number 1 corner immediately if Dan Quinn and Adam Peters go out and make an aggressive move to get Marshon Lattimore in a Commanders uniform. Now, with that being said, okay, it is worth mentioning that Marshon has been dealing with a hamstring issue all season long. It's flared up multiple times. So I think that if the Commanders end up pursuing him, it's going to be very, very important that he passes a physical, that he is healthy, all these different things, if he is going to be a Washington Commander. But I think at the end of the day, you look at his profile, it kind of fits what the Washington Commanders are looking for at this juncture. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who do you guys want the Commanders to trade for before the NFL trade deadline? Do you want a corner? Do you want an edge rusher? Do you want an offensive tackle? Do you want a receiver? Let me know a position and then throw some names down there in the comment section for who you guys want the Commanders to go get. In just a second here, I'm going to be telling you about today's sponsor at Prize Picks. While I'm talking about Prize Picks, find this pinned comment at the top of the comment section and let me know who you want the Commanders to target before next Tuesday. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has more daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you guys have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections on their app for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And the great thing about Prize Picks, guys, is that's the best place to get real money sports action. Join 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Also, Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you just play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So you guys can see my projection here for Thursday night football between the Texans and the Jets. Going to take the more on the receptions for Tank Dell with the Stephon Diggs injury. Going to take the more on Garrett Wilson receiving yards. And then I'm going to take the more on Kaimi Fairbairn with field goals made. So you guys can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly when you use code CLNS after playing your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. The number 3 corner that I'd be targeting here is Greg Newsome, the corner out of Cleveland. Now, I don't think the Browns are going to be unloading Denzel Ward, but I do think Greg Newsome is somebody that I could see the Browns potentially parting ways with. He's going to want a very large contract, which is coming up here pretty soon. But the 24-year-old, he can play both man and zone very, very well. Very versatile type of corner. So if you end up getting this guy and you make a long-term commitment to him, no matter who your defensive coordinator is over the years, no matter what kind of scheme you want to run, Greg Newsome is very well versed in zone coverage. That's what he did in college at Northwestern a lot. He was really, really good at it. And then in the pros, he's played in a very man-heavy system there with the Cleveland Browns, and he's been very solid in that role as a number 2 corner as well. Now, I will say Newsome because he is a younger player, and he was a relatively high draft pick. He's well thought of in NFL circles. He will be more expensive than a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, who's been dealing with injuries. He's getting a little bit older, right? You're going to have to give up probably maybe even a day 2 draft pick to get a guy like Greg Newsome on your team, whereas with Marshawn Lattimore, it's probably more like a 4th or a 5th round pick, maybe even a 6th round pick to get a guy like Lattimore in your building. Number 4 on my list here, and this one might be the most likely trade target for the Washington Commanders at this position, Jonathan Jones from the New England Patriots. Now, he's a bit older here at 31 years old. He's a little bit, he's not quite as big as the other guys on this list, but he's currently in the final year of his contract, and the Patriots aren't really going anywhere this year. I don't think the Patriots want to pay Jonathan Jones big money. So, with Jones being a very solid starting cornerback, he's played in really man-heavy systems before when he played under Bill Belichick there, before he ended up leaving the Patriots. I think he'd be a good fit here in Washington. Would he be a true lockdown number 1 like some of the other guys we've talked about? No, but if you're looking to add just another very solid starter for the rest of this season, and I think that the Commanders would be making a long-term commitment to him. If you can come to an agreement on a nice extension for him that maybe doesn't break the bank, but does get him paid and happy here in Washington, I think this is something that could potentially happen. And I would say this might be the most likely option for the Washington Commanders at this point, because I think he might be the most likely out of all these names on my list today to get traded, because he is getting older, because he is on a contract year, all these different things. So I think Jonathan Jones would be a very solid option. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. If you could pick or you could have your pick between these 4 cornerbacks to add to the Commanders roster, which one are you taking? Are you paying more for a younger guy like Jaycee Horn or Greg Newsome, type JH for Horn or GN for Greg Newsome? Or do you want to go out and get a veteran guy like a Marshawn Lattimore or Jonathan Jones, type ML for Lattimore or JJ for Jonathan Jones? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. So before I go here, we've talked about 4 corners. Let's talk about 2 edge rushers here that I like, that I think could be really good fits here with the Washington Commanders. Now, right now, I think that this pass rush is actually pretty okay. Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Ferrell, they've been kind of quiet all season long. Cleveland's been pretty good. But Dante Fowler Jr., who's more of a rotational guy, he's got the 3rd most snaps out of all the defensive linemen here, out of all the defensive ends, I should say. He's been your most productive pass rusher so far. Jerzon Newton and Deron Payne are playing pretty good up front as well, but honestly, the generator of this pass rush has been the stunts in games, the simulated pressures, all these different things schematically that Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn are doing to get free rushers based on alignment, all these different things that's really working for the Commanders. So getting a guy in this room that can truly win one-on-one consistently could open up the playbook a little bit here for the Washington Commanders if they're able to get one for a good price. So the first guy I want to talk about here is Harold Landry from the Tennessee Titans. We've talked about Harold Landry on the show before, and I'm a big fan of this guy's skill set. He's a really, really good athlete. He is getting a little bit up there in age at 28 years old, but still a very good athlete. And I do think the Titans, we've seen it with the DeAndre Hopkins trade, they're trying to unload some of these players before the deadline. They want to free up some cap space so they can really embrace a full rebuild again here at the start of next offseason. And I think that he has been a really, really good edge rusher here for the Tennessee Titans. He's had multiple sacks for a long, long time here. And I see that our final point there, I think we copied and pasted from the Jack Jones player card there, Mr. Joseph. But he's had multiple sacks in that Titans defense here over the last 2 seasons. He's been a very, very solid edge rusher that can win when he's one-on-one against an opposing offensive tackle. Still has 3 years left on his deal, including this one as well. So if the Commanders, kind of a young, up-and-coming team, they want to make a long-term investment in a guy, I think that Harold Landry is a good fit for this scheme. And I think that he could provide another element to this Commanders pass rush that maybe you don't get with Dorrance Armstrong and Clelin Ferrell as much. Then if you're looking for maybe an upgrade to kind of the Clelin Ferrell type in this defense, Zadarius Smith from the Cleveland Browns is somebody that I'd be taking a look at. He's kind of a bigger, kind of a 4-3 defensive end, really good run defender, but he also gets after the quarterback, man, and he is a hardy veteran. 32 years old. He still has 2 years left on his deal. So it wouldn't just be, what would it be, a 9-game rental at this point for the Commanders? He'd be getting him for a pretty decent amount here. And I do think that the Browns are likely going to be sellers for at the deadline here. There's been even some whispers that they might trade Myles Garrett. I highly, highly, highly doubt they do that. But Zadarius Smith is an older player. The Browns aren't really going anywhere this year. I think that he could certainly be on the move. But, I mean, there's other teams out there that could definitely use an edge as well. I'm looking at you, Detroit Lions. But, I think that Smith would be the less expensive option because he's the older player. He's got less years on his contract. So if the Commanders don't want to pay a relatively high draft pick, I'd say you could probably get Landry for a 4th or, at most a 3rd-round pick. Zadarius Smith might cost a 6th or somewhere around that range because of the age that he's bringing to the table here. So pick an edge rusher for me down there in the comments section. Would you rather pay more for a guy like Harold Landry, type HL? Would you rather get the hardy veteran in Zadarius Smith, type ZD for me, or ZS for me down there in the comments section? F Joey in the chat for that. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Whether Joey gets the graphics right or not, we're going to be here giving you guys informative, in-depth coverage on the Washington Commanders. So get those F Joeys in the chat, and until next time, go raise some hail. All right, Joey.
I was sabotaged again.
You're killing me here, Joey. Come on now. You're supposed to check the graphics before we go live.
I did ZD because Zadarius.
Oh, I see, but that's not what's on the scripts. What are we doing? What are we doing, man? Come on.
Yeah, that's on. I was sabotaged again. Same person as last time.
It's okay, Joey. We still love you, man. All right, man. So get those questions down there. I think we got more than enough questions. There was quite a few that came in during the last break.
We've got I think about 7 right now. Some are some repeats. Would love to see us get 1 or 2 or 3 more in there.
Hey, we got some great audience in here right now. 382 people watching around the world. So thank you guys so much for making this audience so great. Let's get some questions in there. All right. So we've got enough questions to get into the mailbag, but we'll give you guys about 2 or 3 minutes here if you want to put up a shot clock, Joey.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Let's do a 2-minute shot clock here. Guys have 2 minutes to get your questions in. If you want to get your question on the show for free, go ahead and put #Commanders along with your question, and we'll put you on the show. I see GV Blovers here. We got Christopher Trice. If you guys have a question, you want me to answer it, make sure you guys use #Commanders. We got JG. We got Eugene. Eugene says, "Be nice to Joey." I'm always nice to Joey, but if he screws up on the graphics, we're gonna call him out on that a little bit.
That's my job.
We're gonna very nicely point out that he fucked up.
Yeah.
We got David Bell in the chat. We've got Melik Miller in here. We got Gian. We got Gregory Pett. He says. Gregory Pett says, "Make Jack's show great again." Okay. We got Greg Milton. We've got JG. Got Leandre. We got Frank. Got a good crew here, man. We got 345 people watching. 150 likes today. Our goal was 100 likes, so we've already surpassed that and then some. So we got about a minute to go here for you guys to get your questions in. #Commanders or Super Chat to get on the show. And this is my favorite segment of the week because well, first of all, it's easier just because I don't have to script any graphics or anything like that. People just send in their questions, but also I love the fact that I can just talk about the stuff that you guys want me to talk about. I mean, most of my day here at Chat Sports is just thinking about, all right, what do Commanders fans want to hear, what want me to talk about today? Well, in this segment, you guys just tell me what you want me to talk about, and I love giving you guys the opportunity to get on the show and see your questions up on screen. So make sure you guys use hashtag Commanders if you want to get your question on the show. So I see Renee put a nice question in there. But Renee, if you want to get your question on the mailbag, you got to put hashtag Commanders along with that question. I see GV Blover put in a question as well. But GV Blover, if you want it on the mailbag, you got to use hashtag Commanders. Eric Wilson puts in a hashtag Commanders question in there. Good job, Eric. Everybody be like Eric and put those hashtag Commanders questions on. Okay. The timer has run out, so this is what I'll say. While we're in the middle of the mailbag, if you have a question that you want to get on the show, it's not too late, all right? So if you guys put those hashtag Commanders questions in the chat, even while I'm talking about some other questions on the mailbag, go ahead, put those questions in, and we'll get your question on the show. All right, Joey, let's get into our final segment of the day. The weekly Commanders live mailbag is coming at you right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report mailbag. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today we've got the mailbag where I get to answer your questions. I love these segments that we do every single week because I get to have that two-way conversation with you guys. It's not just me talking at you. You guys have the questions ready to go for me, and I love the fact that you guys tell me what you want me to talk about, and then I give answers to it. So before we get into it today, make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the most interactive Commanders fan community here on YouTube. We have a weekly live show on Wednesdays when we film these mailbags. So if you guys want to get on a future edition of the Commanders Report mailbag, make sure you click that subscribe button and join us at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for our weekly Commanders Report live shows. First question coming in from my man Gregory Pett, and says, do you see us unloading anyone? I honestly don't, Greg. I hope I can call you Greg. And the reason why that is because obviously this team is competing right now. And, maybe if Jonathan Allen was healthy, maybe they think about unloading him, especially if Jer'Zhan Newton continues to play well. But with Jonathan Allen out for the season, you can't trade him right now. And I don't think that with him hurt, it really makes sense to trade Daron Payne right now. So, honestly, I don't see us unloading anyone. I think that if the Commanders trade for anyone, it's probably just going to be draft pick compensation. I don't think they want to give up any players in exchange. And I'd be very, very surprised if we see a Commanders player that's traded elsewhere before the trade deadline. Got one from JG here. Says, who do you think will wind up with the sack lead, a defensive line, edge, or linebacker? So is he talking about the units, or is he talking about which player is going to lead the team in sacks? So if you're talking about which group is going to lead the team in sacks, I actually think it's going to be linebackers. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner have been getting after quarterbacks. I think the edges, I think the edges with Dante Fowler Jr., he's done a really good job so far this year. But honestly, man, the way that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. are utilizing Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner on the blitzes has been super, super encouraging here. So if I'd have to say, I think that the linebackers might lead the team in sacks. And if I have to pick one player, I think Frankie Louvu finishes the year with the most sacks on this team. Then we got one from Justin Goldman saying, if there is a surprise trade the Commanders pull off, who will it be for? When it comes to a surprise, I think most people expect them to trade for a corner, so it can't be a corner. So I'm going to go, how about T. Higgins? Let's have some fun. Let's say T. Higgins for this question because, there was a little bit of a drop issue last week against Chicago. I think there was like 4 or 5 drops in the single game for the Commanders. And T. Higgins doesn't have that problem, man. He's got super reliable hands. Can make tough catches down the field for a guy like Jaden Daniels that can throw a great deep ball. Having a 50-50 ball winner like T. Higgins would certainly be nice, especially in the red zone as well. Obviously I want them to prioritize getting a corner before they get a receiver. But if there's going to be, kind of a surprise, I could see the Commanders getting a little aggressive to add another weapon to this team. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Who do you want the Commanders to trade for before the NFL trade deadline this year? Is it a corner? Is it an edge rusher? Is it a receiver? Is it a different position? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Got one coming in from my man Eugene. Says, what do you think our second half of the season record will be with us sitting at 6-2 for the first half? Well, I don't have their schedule in front of me here, Eugene, but I'll say this. I think they're going to be in the double-digit range for sure. And, I think that they're probably going to be anywhere in between the range of probably 11 to 13 wins, depending on, a couple close games throughout the rest of this season. I think that game against the Steelers in a couple weeks is going to be very fun to watch. You've still got both games against Philly. I think Philly is just looking better and better every week, so those games are going to get tougher and tougher, especially as the season goes on. I will say the Cowboys look pretty bad this year, so maybe even get a sweet season sweep against those guys. I might put out another updated record prediction video if you want, Eugene, but right now I'd say probably somewhere in between the 11 and 13 win range, and I'm guessing they win the NFC East. Coming on from Ryan Clark, who says Super Bowl is unrealistic this year. If they made a trade, we need to make a trade for a player that will be on our team for a few years. No one-year rentals. We're not ready. Yeah, and I actually like this point from Ryan here because, I think that when it comes to the Commanders, you have a first-year quarterback in the league, rookie quarterback, and a first-year head coach with your organization. If you look at the NFL trends, it doesn't really matter how good the team is, right? Those quarterbacks and those teams usually don't do well in the playoffs because, quarterbacks usually, the bright lights of the NFL playoffs are a whole different beast, man. The pressure is a whole nother thing that they're just not used to, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, all right, which is why these first-time playoff quarterbacks just tend to not play very well. And then first-year head coaches also have poor records. So the Commanders kind of have a double whammy there, so to speak. With that being said, I think that you can kind of kill two birds with one stone here. I think that there's guys out there like Marshawn Lattimore with 3 years left on his contract, Harold Landry with 3 years left on his contract. If you trade for a guy with a 1-year deal, you can still extend them to a new contract and keep him here long term. But I agree with Ryan's premise here that you're probably not trading for somebody just to have them on the team for just this season. Now, before we get into the rest of the questions on today's Commanders Report mailbag, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Game Time, which is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater in your area. And guys, we all know that experiencing a sporting event, especially a football game live, is unlike anything you can get from watching the game on your couch. Game Time Picks is a brand new feature from our friends at Game Time, which filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It's super easy to use, guys. Just download the free Game Time app. You find an event you want to go see, you select the Game Time Picks button at the top of the screen, and it does all the research for you, man. It filters out every single ticket for that event in their database to find you the best tickets at the best prices and the best deals for you and your family. It saves you a bunch of time and money, and it really is. It just allows you to get really great price tickets without having to spend hours doing the research, going on a bunch of different ticketing sites. And the reason why I have Game Time as the only ticketing app on my phone is that you get the lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event. So no matter what, the ticket prices that you see on Game Time, they're the lowest price you're going to see anywhere else. Also, you get all-in pricing right up front, so you don't get slapped with a crazy fee at checkout. You know immediately what you will pay for these tickets before you buy them. Then also, you get flash deals, so you can get even cheaper tickets the closer you wait to game time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. It's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Got a question coming in here from Greg Milton. Says, what are the answers to address the drop from high red zone effectiveness to bottom half over the last 3 games? So listen, man, it's just execution. when you have contested catch situations, I'm looking at you, Zach Ertz. You got to bring down the football. You can't have stupid penalties that bring back touchdowns like we've seen this team have a number of times and put this team behind the sticks in those kind of goal-to-go situations. And because like a 3rd and long when you are in the red zone is practically impossible because of the lack of space that you have to work with, right? So it's very, very important for this team to not shoot themselves in the foot when they are in the red zone. And I think another thing that I think this team could do even a little bit more is get Jayden Daniels involved in the run game down in the red zone a little bit more. I mean, Jayden's been extremely effective as a rusher down there in the red zone. So I'm really, really hoping that in the weeks to come that we see, the effective red zone offense that we've seen at times for the Commanders as opposed to the 0 for 9 in the red zone that we've seen from them in the Giants and Bears games respectively. So they've had a couple really, really bad games in the red zone, which I think has affected their overall ranking in the league in this particular category. But I think when we look at outside of those 2 games, this is actually a team that's been doing a pretty decent job getting into the end zone. Then we got the Rizzler here. Nice. Says, if the season ended today, would you give Dan Quinn the Coach of the Year award? I would. I think Dan Quinn is a hell of a coach. I was a fan of the hire when they made it. Personally, because they were about to go get a quarterback in the draft, I think that when you look at the numbers, it's these quarterbacks tend to do better when you get an offensive head coach. But I said, if you're going to get a defensive head coach, Dan Quinn would be my choice. And the reason why that was because he has an awesome culture, and then also he's super well respected. And what that allowed him to do was that he was able to pretty much get a great group of coaches together that were willing to be a part of his staff. Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Witt Jr. A bunch of great coaches are on this staff this year, which is why this team has done such a good job at making this transition from the Ron Rivera era into now the Dan Quinn era in just one season, and now they're sitting at 6-2 when just last spring they were drafting number 2 overall in the NFL draft. So kudos to Dan Quinn. To this point, man, he is elevating the scheme that he is putting together with Joe Witt Jr. is elevating the defense. He picked the right guy, both at the coordinator position on offense and at the quarterback position. And we all know what Jayden Daniels is doing to elevate this team right now. So I love the culture that Dan Quinn has established here. And if I'd have to guess, I think that he will be the next head coach here in Washington to hoist a Lombardi trophy at some point. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is Dan Quinn the NFL's Coach of the Year as it stands right now? Give me a yes or a no. I certainly think he has a strong case for that as we stand here today. Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. Got one coming in from Henry Schneider here. What's up, Henry? Says, do you think in the offseason you trade Emmanuel Forbes and Jonathan Allen in a package, get a couple of picks and like a player or two? What team would you target if so? Listen, man, I'm not even sure people are going to want Emmanuel Forbes. I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders just end up just straight up releasing him like they did with Jamin Davis. Forbes has been an absolute mess. He was out there for a couple plays last week, and there was one play where there was a run that Chicago ran right at him on the outside, and his effort level to bring the running back down was pitiful. All right, and that's why he barely played for the rest of the game. So I'm not even sure teams are going to be interested in Forbes at this point. He's too skinny. He's not good enough in coverage. So unfortunately, I just don't think you can get anything for him. Jonathan Allen is somebody you can trade, and I think they will trade. I don't know necessarily what team is going to really be that desperate to get a guy like Jonathan Allen, but I think that the Commanders could probably get a third at the most, probably a fifth at the least for John, just because of the impact that he can potentially have. So that's probably what I'd say to that question, Henry. Make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already, if you want to win and beat the New York Giants in Week 9 and secure the season sweep. I know I do. I hate the New York Football Giants. If you do as well, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now. Got one from Mikey Wu. What's up, Mikey? Says, in your opinion, who is on your wish list for trades next week? I would love Jaycee Horn. Now, Jordan Schultz says that the Panthers probably aren't going to trade him, so there's that. And then other than that, I really like Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints, if he's healthy, and that's a big if right now. He's been dealing with a hamstring issue. I like Greg Newsome, the young corner out of Cleveland. You might have to pay a little bit of a higher price to get him because he is still so young, but he could be a guy for the future here in Washington. And then also Jonathan Jones is an interesting one, corner from the New England Patriots. Really want this team to go out and get a corner. Those are the four guys I have my eyes on. So that's what I would say, Mikey. Coming on from John Gruden 33 says, does the Commanders wide receiver room have a drop problem? They certainly did last week, man. I think they had I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 drops last week's game against the Bears. And some of them were in pretty big spots, all right? And this is why some people are like, let's go trade for a receiver. And I'm like, I'm okay with it. If you get a guy for the right price, I'm cool with it. But I think for the most part, Noah Brown has done a good job as this number 2 receiver. Luke McCaffrey, De'Ami Brown, and Olamide Zaccheaus have all filled in well as kind of supplementary pieces. And you do have a true number 1 guy in Terry McLaurin, plus Zach Ertz has been solid, and then you've got 2 guys in Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler that can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. And the offensive numbers, it's not like the offense is struggling right now, right? They are an elite top 3 offense in the league without adding a receiver. So I would certainly say cornerback is the more pressing issue for the Commanders. But I mean, if they add a receiver, I certainly think that could bring this offense to an even higher level, especially if it's a guy like T. Higgins. So let me know down there in the comments section, do the Commanders need to add a receiver before the deadline? I would personally say they don't need to. I would say I'm fine with it if they do, especially if they get them at the right price. But if you're asking me if I'm willing to sacrifice getting a corner to get a receiver, at this point, I'm simply not. Appreciate everybody that submitted questions this week. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next week, guys, I appreciate your support, and go raise some hail. All right. So we are done with our segments today. Still got about 300 people watching. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff.
Only a couple mistakes. There we go. We were perfect there.
You were perfect there.
Perfect the first one, too.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
I'll have to check that one, man.
No F. Joey's in the chat.
I guess it was only F. Joey in the second segment today,
Yep.
But I appreciate each and every one of you guys for sticking with us here. We're going to be going live on Sunday for the game. I think it's going to be me and Coop. I think Joey, I think you got the Ravens game on Sunday. So it's going to be me and producer Coop is going to be here to watch the Commanders-Giants game with us. So if you want to come hang out on Sunday, we got Super Chat promotions. We've got a lot of fun stuff. And if you guys watched last week's watch party, you guys know how fun that was with the Hail Mary. So we have some of the largest Commanders watch parties on the YouTube platform. And, what we love to do is just, react to the games together as a fan base. And if you want to hang out with fellow Commanders fans here on YouTube on Sunday, you guys can click that subscribe button and join us. I believe we're going to be going live. I believe it's a noon game.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so we're going to be going live at, so it's 1 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be going live at noon Eastern time on Sunday, all right? So if you want to join us for that, I appreciate your guys' support. And until next time, guys, go raise some hail.